Welcome to another episode of I Take Your Point podcast. I am John Dunson, joined by my lovely co-host today. Hopefully you guys have had a wonderful day today, and hopefully you are having the start of a wonderful week, or you're starting to have a wonderful week. That said, thank you as always for taking the time to spend with us. If you haven't already joined I Take Your Point in terms of subscriptions, please do so. We'd love to have you join the conversation. Today, we are channeling another episode of our relationship economy series, which you guys are enjoying based on some of the comments. Let's jump right in. Today, we're going to be talking about the lifestyle you can't afford. We're talking about the expectation inflation. So the core question is, what happens when your expectations outgrow your structure? That happens to a lot of us because one of the things that we have to protect against is lifestyle creep. There's a version of adulthood that almost everyone is being told to want. That's the beautiful house, the destination wedding, the anniversary trip, the birthday weekend, the luxury apartment, the perfectly designed home. The children who have every experience, the friend group that is always outside, the relationship that always looks exciting, and the family that always looks successful. None of those things are inherently wrong. Not at all. There's nothing wrong with wanting a beautiful life. There's nothing wrong with wanting comfort. There's nothing wrong with wanting romance, travel, celebration, style, joy, or memorable experiences. But at some point, we have to ask a harder question. Can the structure underneath our lives actually sustain the lifestyle we are trying to create? Because a lot of the relationships are not only under emotional pressure, they're also under lifestyle pressure. People are trying to finance a version of love, friendship, family, success, and adulthood that may not match their actual capacity. The expectations keep rising, but the income does not always rise with it. The cost of housing keeps rising. The cost of travel keeps rising. The cost of childcare keeps rising. And the cost of simply participating in other people's lives keeps rising. So time does not expand. Energy does not expand. Caregiving does not get easier. Debt does not disappear. Stress does not shrink. But the image of what life is supposed to look like keeps getting more expensive. That is what we call expectation inflation. Expectation inflation happens when the expected lifestyle keeps rising, but the structure underneath it does not keep pace. And when that gap gets too wide, relationships start absorbing pressure they were never designed to carry. Now someone has to work more. Someone has to be accountable more. Your credit cards get used more. Someone has to keep saying yes when they really want to say no. Someone has to hide the fact that they cannot afford the trip. Someone has to pretend that the wedding is not creating stress. Someone has to keep up with a friend group whose rhythm of participation has become too expensive. And someone has to perform abundance while privately running a deficit. And that is where the resentment enters the room. Because now people are not just trying to love each other. They're trying to keep up, and keeping up is what can cause trouble. They're trying to prove something. They're trying to look stable. They're trying to perform success. They're trying to finance belonging. And sometimes the relationship is not failing because people do not care. Sometimes the expectations have simply become too expensive for the structure. So the relationship cannot afford the love, afford the access, the family cannot afford the image. And the people involved may not even realize that the pressure they are feeling is coming from expectations they never consciously chose. Expectations copied from social media, imported from television, inherited from family, normalized by friends, sold by advertising. And obviously, one of the things that we have to be cognizant of is when they're reinforced by the culture that constantly tells us that a meaningful life should also be a visible one. So today, the question is not simply, what kind of life do you want? The deeper question is, what can your structure actually sustain? Because the goal cannot just be to build a life that looks beautiful. The goal has to be building a life that you can maintain and that it can actually function inside of what you can afford emotionally, financially, and spiritually. So let me ask you, are you trying to build a relationship or finance a lifestyle? Miss Lynn, before we jump into that, how are you doing today?
Doing well, John. Thank you for asking. And yourself?
I am always better than I deserve and living the dream.
Which dream, John? The reality or the one that you want to project? Let's get to it.
Well, in my case, it's usually both. It's the same. I don't try to project something that's not there. So that is my truth these days. So
Everybody has their own truth, and I can't wait to hear more of it.
So we start with culture. And one of the things we have to be cognizant of is when you're in a group And you're in a situation where you have these friends who are taking these wonderful vacations, whether they're going to Spain. I have a friend that just took a trip to Spain for 3 weeks. I have other friends that have spent a lot of time in Portugal and, they're thinking about moving there. Friends who are visiting the different islands and friends who are in London. And a part of that is understanding that these guys, in this particular case, plan for it and they can afford it. But we also have to be cognizant of vacation culture. Vacation culture has turned travel into proof of happiness, success, romance, friendship, and family health. It's no longer just we took a trip. It becomes, look how well we're doing, look how much fun we have, look how strong our relationship is, look how close our friendship is, and look how successful our family looks. The trip becomes that public receipt that you splash on social media. And you tag individuals and you tag your location and you say, hey, guess where I am, or my current situation, or something of that sort. And that creates pressure because other individuals may see that and they may think that they too should be taking those vacations. So the question that I have for you is, do you think people feel pressure to travel because they actually want the experience, or because they feel their relationships look incomplete without having travel receipts?
Let me ask you a question before I answer that. The friends that you just referenced, are they generational X or Z or combination or all over?
It's Gen X, some boomers, a couple of millennials. I don't usually associate with Gen Z that much. So it's the millennials going through boomers.
I think that it could behoove you to spend a little bit of time with Gen Z, because I think there's a little bit of generational pressure and norms and expectations that play into them. Earlier this week, I had an opportunity to meet what I hope would be my future daughter-in-law, but apparently she was 17 and my son was having none of it. At any rate, before I realized that she was 17, we had this amazing conversation about life. We had a plethora of topics that we were talking about. We ended up talking about dating, and she said in their generation, they expect everyone to be equal, to pay their way. Girl pays her way, dog pays his way. I said, oh, really? I didn't know that, because I instructed my son to pay. She goes, oh, I would love them to do that, but we just have this expectation that nobody has money, and so we just pay our way. And so the reason why I said that is because I just think Gen Z has this approach of minimalism. Like, they love to thrift, they love to repurpose, and they're very intentional about the things that they do. And so if they were going to go on a trip, it was an intentional trip. We're going to go to the lake. We're going to go do something. But it doesn't have to be this big production that somewhere along the way, social media, I'm assuming, brought us to. Because when I was a kid, we would go on vacation, and we went on vacation. There was no posting. I mean, I knew some people would do like a holiday card, and they would put everything in the world in there. We didn't do that. We just went on holiday, and that was that. So I think that a lot of it comes from this concept of keeping up and to project this lifestyle in some generations, in some people. But there are a lot of younger people that they don't have that mindset. They don't care about that. They're not going to spend and be wasteful of money just so that somebody else can think, wow, look at them.
Yeah, I get that there may be people that do things like that. I'm going to push back on it a little bit, because I think of my sister, and she has a tendency to document all of her trips, and she takes a lot of trips. She likes vacation. That's her thing. And the week before last, for her birthday, she went to the beach with her husband, and she's always documenting things. And this weekend, she was here, and she documented everything that occurred. The question I posed to her was, why does she document everything in her? Because there'd be days when I may be feeling down, where there may be issues that are going on, and I can always look back, and it can take me back to a happier time or a place that did not have maybe the stress that I'm dealing with right now. So for some individuals, social media in and of itself allows that capture, that experience, so that they can relive that experience as much as they want to. Some individuals may see it as flexing or showboating. Others may see it, like my sister, as a way for them to memorialize the experiences that they're having, and they just happen to share it with individuals who may not be able to either do what she's doing or have the resources to do what she's doing. And there are some people, if we're being honest, that love to watch other individuals have fun. So we have to be cognizant of that. Now, I will that Gen Z is under a lot of pressure with respect to what the expectations have been. But I find it also extremely ironic because Gen Z is the look at me generation.
They're
And so
not.
from that, they are.
They're literally not. They're not. And so I want to just clarify a couple of points with you. You're the one that actually brought up the fact that it's keeping up. I was commenting on that. That wasn't something that I positioned. I agree with your sister, and I can understand that and appreciate that because it's essentially a digital picture book. Like, remember, we have those photographs when you go to your grandmother's house and you look. So it's a way to have that and to reference it quickly. I understand that with Gen Z. I've had a lot of conversations. I find that generation fascinating. That they really kind of reject a lot of the norms that are put on them. The conversation they had with the young lady earlier this week, one of the things I was talking to her about is like, your goal right now is to stack memories so that when you turn 50, you say, we used to do this, how are we still alive? Like, that should be the ending of every single, because you should have these amazing journeys. And I said, a lot of times you will listen to Gen X and millennials and all these other generations that came before you, and you try and live your life based in their shadow. Create your own journey. I think that generation has the mindset to do it, but because people like us are always trying to inflict on, well, this is the way you should do it, or look at this. They don't even get on Facebook. Like, I don't know anybody.
But Facebook is not the only social media platform.
I just don't see them doing. I see them being more
You don't see them on. They're on.
I see them being more intentional. John, you just admitted that you don't spend a lot of time with Gen Z. I do.
I don't have to spend time with them to see that. I don't have to spend time with them to see.
So help me to understand how you would know this.
If I'm looking at IG, if I'm looking at
But
TikTok,
you don't look at you have admitted that you don't look at IG and you don't do TikTok. So where are you getting your information, sir?
Just because I do not look at it in detail doesn't mean that I'm not aware of it. I can get it from different social media feeds. I can get it from my family members who may send me.
And none of them are Gen Z. None of them.
They don't have to be Gen Z.
Let me just make sure I understand, because I don't want to be argumentative with you. I'm just trying to understand and clarify from your position. So family members will send you TikTok videos, which you have admitted you don't click on things from social media. You have told me in the past you don't click on social media links. So they will send you things. And then I'm just assuming that what you said when you click on things, that was only for certain people or certain things. So I'll go to grace on that. And then to clear up my point here, to move it on. So let's just say that, set that aside, that you do click on them. I'm assuming that based on the metadata, based on the person that's doing, you can tell that it's a Gen Z that created this.
Okay, so a part of what it is that I do weekly is because of the curation of a public media platform that I've been running for 9 years, it's incumbent upon me to be aware of what's being said in the social media space. Now, it is true that if someone sends me an unsolicited TikTok or an IG, chances are I'm not going to look at the link. If you send me a link and you say, hey, this is X, Y, and Z, take a look at it, then you've given me the information that I need to determine whether or not it's something that I want to look at. So if daughter sends me something and she says, hey, I'm looking at this, and this, or someone said this, and this, have you seen this video?
Based on the content and the metadata that's associated with that, it's Gen Z that's doing that as opposed to some other generation.
Yes, if I go to Twitter right now and I look at Twitter links and I look at videos from Twitter links, and let's say that the trending topic today is the WNBA, and the WNBA in terms of all the messiness that has been going on with Caitlin Clark. Chances are the individuals who are responding and then upposting some of those videos on Twitter are Gen Z.
I just want to clarify again. You can determine that how?
I'm pretty sure you can determine it by looking at their avatar.
And so you do that. You do that deep dive so that you're giving information that's truthful. Because again, if I heard you correctly, you don't spend time with Gen Z, but you make inferences that they're sending it to you.
I don't have to spend time with Gen Z to know what a Gen Z post is.
And again, I was just trying to clarify how you would determine that, because the information that I have from actually having conversations with them is that they don't spend a lot of time looking at the look at me generation. That it's more of your daughter's
the look at me. They are the look at me generation.
I don't think so, but I mean, you can think whatever you want to. I actually had the conversation
that Gen Z doesn't post on TikTok,
I
IG,
said
Reels.
they're more intentional and it's less about
It's
look at
not
all the
about being
things of
intentional. It's
well,
not
that's
about
what
being
I'm
intentional.
saying. That's what I'm saying. And so I understood you to have a different position, which I mean, you can have your different position. I'm saying based on the conversations that I've had, it's more intentional and less about look at me and more about this is the experience I had.
Okay, you're trying to parse what a look at me generation is, or the look at me medium by definition is.
By your
I
definition.
It is not by my, it's IG, Instagram, Reels. It is visual. So the look at me generation are prone to post on the visual mediums as opposed to a Substack or a Facebook
May I
or
ask another
something.
clarifying question? So
Sure.
when I understand when you say look at me, I've always taken that as a negative. And so you're saying that it can be positive. Look at me, I'm positive. Look at me, this is great. The way that you've always positioned it and the way I received it, it was something that was negative. Like, look at me, I'm trying to keep up. But now I'm understanding you to say that it's look at me, I'm doing positive things. Look at me, world, I'm amazing. Is that what I'm hearing from you, John?
No, but that's an interesting way of saying it. And to be fair, maybe I do need to come up with a different term other than the look at me generation. Maybe I will call it the visual mediums,
Okay, I like
where
that.
they are more prone to the visual ones that lean toward words.
I think that that would be appropriate, and I can get on board that, especially when we pair that with the fact that we know that they don't read as much as our generations do. So it's more of a visual representation of their experiences. So the visual generation. I love that, John. Thank you for having that journey with me and coming up with words that can actually match how that generation is experiencing and receiving life. Thank you, John.
Look at you. Look at us. Anyway, so the second cultural receipt is the luxury normalization. And this is all you. This is you. Luxury normalization is when expensive choices stop feeling exceptional and start feeling standard. On this podcast, there's certain things that you do not do. There's certain standards that you have. And so whether it's the upgraded hotel, whether it's the designer bag, whether it's the luxury apartment, whether it's the high-end restaurant, the private school, the premium birthday party, the perfect home aesthetic, the professional photo shoot, the luxury baby shower, the destination wedding, the curated proposal, the matching family outfits, the custom everything. So I just named off 12 things, of which I'm fairly confident that 50% of you have done, correct? Would that be a fair statement?
I don't know, but let me again.
Hold on. Is that a fair thing?
It's not about the price tag. It's about quality. Because I've said this before 100 times. Last week I told you that it wasn't just because it's private school, charter school, or public school. It's the quality school. Clothing. It's not about the label. It's about how I look in it, how I feel in it. Because I've said this before. I will go to the Walmart, Target, whomever, and get a $5 shirt and pair it with a $100, $200 pair of pants, just because the way it feels. I don't care about labels. I would say that there are certain things that I do. I like quality.
I want to phrase it this way, and I think this will get to you diving deeper into it not looking like the villain here.
I'm not a villain, so I wouldn't be looking like that. How could I possibly, unless you try and position me that way, and then that would be on you and not me, because
I would never put you in the villain.
You could never do it because I'm not.
So the point is, none of those things are inherently wrong. And the problem is when luxury becomes the baseline expectation. Because we both have friends.
I don't think it's luxury. I think it's quality. In Austin, some of the scariest restaurants have the best food. I'm not interested in eating in a 5-star restaurant if the food is poor. I'm not interested in anything if the experience is poor. I'm interested in a quality experience, whatever that looks like.
So we'll say this. Luxury normalization creates shame. And they may start feeling the pressure to keep up with the Joneses. And they start stretching, whether it's charging, borrowing, overworking, hiding, declining those invitations because they may not feel that they can afford it, feeling embarrassed, feeling resentment, or feeling inadequate. And the relationships can get distorted because we talked about last week, how you enter is how it is that you set the standard for what it is that a person may expect. If I am taking you to a 5-star restaurant on the first date, then chances are you may be expecting that on subsequent dates. So the question becomes, as the symbol gets bigger than what one can afford, then that creates a structure that may lead to imbalance. So when luxury becomes normal, how does that change what you think about love, friendship, or success?
Once again, that is not my journey. I'll go back to my son and a conversation that we just actually had this morning. We had lunch together, and I was telling him about the conversation I had with the young lady earlier about sharing or splitting the bill. And he said, well, on the first couple of dates, I would usually pay. But then as we became friends or whatever, I would be honest and say, hey, I can't afford that, or I'm working part-time right now. Can we do this? And I said, I love the honesty. I love the connection, the intimate connection where you're not feeling like you have to keep up with something. Again, I go back to that's us. That's you. That grew up in this digital analog world where before, when we were growing up, you and I were growing up, we didn't have access to TikTok, social media, iPhones, like none of that stuff. Like we just lived our life. And then when we were introduced to things, all of a sudden you started to see slices into other people's lives. And you're like, why am I not doing this? Why am I not doing that? And then I think that created the pressure, that reality TV, which is fake. But at any rate, I think that's what did it. And I still think it's a generational thing because I just don't think that we should put these same expectations on another generation. Just because we're living it, normalizing it, I think that does a disservice to this generation that's charting their own course. So I want to make sure that we're super clear. We're not telling people this is the way it is just because it's always been that way. Second, I don't care about posting all of my stuff online. I just don't care about that stuff. Like none of that stuff. I don't want any of that to be associated with me. I'm authentic and I curate my friends because they're authentic as well. And if you can't accept me for who I am, then I'm sorry. That's just who I am. I have to reject a lot of the stuff that you say. And I understand that you're making it very general so that it's accessible to a large, wide audience, but that's literally not me. And it's not any of the people. Well, I mean, I may have a couple of girlfriends, maybe one that's like that, but we don't do that.
That is not true.
Okay.
Because when you go to a hotel, do you look to get upgraded at a hotel?
No, I look them as clean.
Obviously, we talked about the private school.
The quality matter. They could have gone to a public school. If we went to Westlake, if we could have afforded to live in Westlake and they had all of the same things at a private school, then that's where we would have went. We chose not to live in Westlake.
Have you ever had matching family outfits?
We do that at Christmas.
Okay. Did you do a destination wedding?
No.
But you had the wedding announcement that was featured in the New York Times, correct?
And I did that myself. And so I paid for my entire wedding myself. We didn't.
Okay, but still the announcement was
because it was something that I wanted to memorialize. And so I have a poster. I still have it. And we were divorced, but it was something that it's the New York Times. And then I would be able to get a poster of it, and it's something I thought I was staying married. It was,
and a professional photo shoot.
At my wedding, yes, I did have a professional photo shoot.
No, professional photo shoot not at your wedding, but now you've done a professional photo shoot.
I've done a professional wedding shoot for
not a wedding shoot, a professional photo.
I finished. I've had professional pictures taken several times in my life, throughout my life. I've done that. I've done it for someone's business. I've done it for myself. I've done it prenatal pictures taken. I've had lots of pictures taken. And again, it's to memorialize something and to celebrate something.
I take your point, and I'll compare it to what we just talked about with respect to individuals capturing on video and memorializing it. You're memorializing it, but that is luxury, excuse me.
I think it's relative to where you're at, right? So I think it's relative. So some people might think that your 100 bottles of cologne or how many pairs of shoes do you have back there is luxurious. But
it is luxurious.
Because where you are at in your life, the things that you've done in your life, those are the things that you choose to spend your money on. Those are your disposable income.
But it's still luxury normalization.
To other people, to you, to me, that could, getting a professional photo shoot that maybe I paid for.
Mhm.
That's not luxurious to me. For me, that would be like, I'm getting ready to take a 2-month holiday to Europe.
Okay, so but you keep moving. Okay, but at
Because
some point,
I'm saying your definition is based on where you're, because my idea of luxury and your idea of luxury are totally different.
they're
Okay,
going to always
Elon
different.
Musk's, Elon
They'll
Musk's
always be different.
definition of luxury and Jeff Bezos' definition of luxury is going to be completely different than mine.
But that's always going to be the case.
Okay, so everybody's definition is going to be different.
But that doesn't mean it's not luxurious.
Okay, to you, it may not be to somebody else. Because if I tell Jeff Bezos, I got a professional photo shoot and I bought these pants from Theory, he's going to be like, girl, I own Theory, and what are you talking about? Here's
But that's-
$150.
okay.
Go away.
But that is Jeff Bezos. He's in the top.
Right. And so
Decimal of-
okay, then let's just say, I don't know, somebody that's a millionaire. And I
Mhm.
tell them, oh, I did this, and they're like, okay. Because it's relative to them. Their definition of luxury is going to be different than my definition of luxury. And my definition of luxury is going to be different than somebody that is unhoused. Like, it's just,
no,
the definitions are different.
No, I reject that. I reject
Okay,
it.
well, I mean, you can feel
Let me
whatever
tell you
you
why.
want.
Let me tell you why I reject it. Because you are constantly moving the goalpost.
Well, I'm not moving it. I'm making it relative and relatable. The conversation has no legs because it's going to be dependent on the recipient and who's doing it. My definition of luxury is not the same as someone else's. It
I
just
reject
can't
that.
be. It
I reject
can't
that.
be.
I reject that answer.
Okay.
That said, I understand what you're saying. I just reject it.
Okay.
The third receipt is we talked about this with what I refer to as the look at me now, the visual medium generation. I still like this subject because it's like a petty dig. But the social media,
It's not appropriate.
so the social media mechanism does not show people what others are doing. It trains people to compare their private structure to someone else's public highlight. And that's a part of social media that I truly don't like, because you only see the curated aspects of what an individual wants to show you. And that's by design. You do not see the struggle. You do not see, you see the vacation, not the balance sheet. You see the house, not the mortgage stress. You see the wedding, not the family arguments. You see the anniversary dinner, not the months of silence or sleeping on the couches. You see Lynn going out with her friend group, but not that person who Lynn may have had to finance to attend the group function because that person was not financially able to do so for him or herself. You see the lifestyle, not the infrastructure. It's good to be able to see what your friends are doing, but it's also fucks with you mentally because a lot of individuals try to compare themselves to say, hey, wow, why am I not where this person is? Whether you're looking at that person's lifestyle or you're looking at something that he or she may accomplish. So the question I have for you is, do you think social media has made people less grateful for relationships that are actually stable, but not especially glamorous?
I think that anyone, and I'm going to be judgy here, so buckle up. I think that anyone that is looking at social media and they're taking it as is, not taking into account that people live full lives and not just in 30-second intervals that they place on social media. I think that if you're looking at that and you're comparing your life, there might be an opportunity for you to do some soul searching. I've talked about this before. I just don't think anybody in this world is better than anybody else. I think that everybody has their opportunities for growth, and I think everybody has their successes. And so no one lives a perfect life. For me to spend my time trying to compare and contrast my life to somebody else's life that I see on social media, I'm going to go talk to my therapist, because no one has a perfect life. No one. I hate to even bring this up, but I'm going to do it anyway, just to make it relatable to you. You had a tragedy in your neighborhood, and on the outside, everything looked fine. Nobody knew what kind of issues were going on in that house until it was too late. And so you never know. I know that whatever is shown on social media or whatever can give you some insight into someone's life, but it's not the entire thing. You have to take other inputs in order to make a complete picture. If somebody says, I was at home and then you see them at the baseball game, then you know that they're lying. But other than that, it's like I need more inputs than just whatever I see on social media. Even the police, if they see that, they're not going to be like, okay, now you're no longer a suspect. They're not doing that. They need more information, or now you're the killer. They're not doing that. That's one input.
Yeah, I agree that we have to be very, very cognizant of the picture that we allow social media to tell, or what we receive when we look at the pictures that are on social media. And that's a great pivot to politics and the first receipt of politics, wage stagnation. Wage stagnation creates a gap between what people are expected to afford and what their income actually supports. So the lifestyle expectation keeps rising, but the paycheck may not. That gap becomes relational pressure. Most divorces happen because of financial issues or financial pressures. And that can be that the couple may work full time, but still feel like they're behind on certain things. The family may argue over money because everyone is stretched. The adult children may need help. The parents can no longer provide, or parents may need help from their own children. And so you feel that burnout, you feel that stretching, you feel individuals needing certain things all the time. And financial obligations can have a real impact on the family unit, because it does impact those vacations we talked about. It does impact how you show up on social media, or what it is that you say with respect to social media. When wages do not match expectations, people tend to blame each other. And it could be that you're holding us back. I need you to get a better job. I need you to get a job. I need you to do something that provides more so that we can either get a bigger house or kids can go to this particular school. What we saw, especially this week, we had the Mecca Howard University that had an incident happened with some kiddos who were unfortunately removed. They were given access or granted access or accepted to the university. And because the family could not afford to pay in time to meet some of the obligations that they had, they were removed from the roster and told that they were no longer in the incoming freshman class. And this is 2 weeks before school starts. So those financial pressures are real. And so the question I have for you is this: do you think people often turn economic pressure into relationship conflict because it's easier to blame the person closest to them rather than looking at the structure of their life and what it is that they can be doing to help mitigate some of these situations?
I'm going to speak hypothetically because that was not my situation. I made 100% sure that my partner and I would not be fighting over money. We may fight over other things, but money was never going to be an issue for us. So the communication up front was very, very clear, and what we did in terms of money was very clear. Like, that wasn't a thing with us. I'm going to speak hypothetically and just based on some conversations I've had with friends. I appreciate that you framed it in terms of schooling for kids, because I think that's the big thing. Not that we have to go get a bigger house or vacation. It's real when it becomes the kids can't go to college. Maybe you've planned for it and maybe somebody lost a job or maybe something happened. The price of getting into university keeps rising. So it doesn't adjust with your income. It's just going to keep rising. If something happens, then that can impact your kid's ability to go to school. And that's a problem that I would be concerned with. But I do think that it comes back to communication. And like I said, my ex-husband and I, that's the one area that we did okay in, was the money part. But it was, what can we afford? What can we do? What do we need to adjust? What do we, whatever. And then we both knew that we paid half of everything. I paid my half, he paid his half. So there was no like, okay, you pay all the bills and I ride horses. It was both of us paid. And then when the kids were going to school, we split it. Like, he paid the utilities, I paid the private school, but it was always equal. And I think that it goes back to having a foundation of trust and communication. And I'll just relate it back to like what my son said. Hey, you know what? I'm working part-time and I can't afford this. Can we do this, this, this? And just having that conversation. If that person can't receive it, especially before you get married, if they can't receive that or whatever, then, you know, maybe they're not the person for you. And let me tell you a quick little story. So the kid and I were having lunch today, and he was telling me that story about, you know, I can't afford this, or when we would have this conversation, I said, I couldn't imagine growing up and then some guy telling me, okay, well, what's your half? I'm sorry, what happened now? I said, you know what? I think that perhaps women, of my generation may have put a lot of pressure on these men to support us in terms of like taking us out, doing whatever, showing us these experiences. And I took it for granted. I said, no wonder a lot of them were like 19 and selling drugs. Like they didn't have that kind of money. But I was like, well, find it. Like, if you want to take me out, find this money. And I was like, I wonder if we did put a lot of pressure on men to provide these experiences for us. Never crossed my mind that they didn't have the money. Because I was like, well,
I think two things can be true. I think when you talk about a relationship and you talk about just a male female and you're starting out in a relationship or starting out in a marriage, there can be financial constraints as you're trying to navigate who's going to carry what and what your household structure is going to look like in terms of finances. I think most folk that I talk to, and this has been a huge topic of conversation in my groups over the last couple of days, is when you have kiddos who are migrating to college, and college is expensive, and you have that strain that's on a family to be able to afford that college. Maybe they can't afford the first choice of the kiddo. Maybe they can't attend a Howard University, but they can attend community college for a couple of years and then possibly, if they're fortunate enough, be able to transfer in. Or they can attend a smaller college that is not as expensive, or they're having to rely on scholarships and things of that sort because the family financially can't foot the bill with respect to school. And so one of the things that has been a topic of conversation is when you have that conversation and it impacts not only your relationship with your spouse, but you have to have the conversation with your kid to say, hey, we can't afford to do this, 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 and this. And that's part of, I think, where the mechanism is tested, not necessarily between the husband and a wife, but the husband and a wife and the family unit and how those conversations financially impact the family unit.
I think that's the heart of it, because for me, and I know a lot of my friend groups, we want our kids to have the best experience. We don't want them to have to sacrifice or suffer because of choices that we made. One of the conversations that we had to have with the youngest one is like, look, you have an opportunity to do dual credit at high school, and that's going to save us a ton of money. Or you can go to the local community college here. You can get all your core classes taken care of and then transfer into university. If you do that, then we'll have the money to allocate for you a car and then help you with your first place to live. And so there are going to have to be some sacrifice because we are not Jeff Bezos. We have to have these conversations, but that's a hard conversation because you want your kids to have the best experience. I also want my kid to understand finances. I want them to understand sacrifice. I want them to understand that life isn't always easy. And so there are choices that you have to make. So having that conversation with, as uncomfortable as it was so good. He's a good kid anyway. He's not a wasteful kid in terms of spending. I'm probably more wasteful in terms of spending than he is. He understood it, and we all together, all three of us, made the decision of what he needed to do. We talked about this 3 episodes ago, giving them the opportunity to develop skills that are going to help them into adulthood. And so having that conversation with them and bringing them in, helping them to understand the landscape in terms of finances, choices, whatever, can help them to grow or develop those skills that are going to help them be successful adults.
We're coming up on August, which is one of my favorite months. School starts and you have summer that's winding down and you have fall that's right around the corner. I associate August, especially that second week of August, with going to college. And this is the first time that I had the experience of going and being an adult, but at the same time having adult conversations and adult pressures. Anyone who attended the Mecca knows that Howard University has a reputation, fairly and unfortunately, of being an institution that can piss you off with respect to financial aid and finances. And I remember my freshman year, and we talked about this, I believe, in one of the previous episodes, where you hope that your grants, your loans, or whatever it is that you are using to pay for school, it's there to be able to fund your education. And so I almost had like a deja vu moment this week with all the shit that happened with Howard and these kids, because you want them to have a great experience at the Mecca. And there's a segment of the population that will go. It's a rite of passage for them to experience some of the stuff with respect to financial aid and finances at our university. And yeah, I get it. I get that we want to romanticize some of that. But the other side of that is that it still can set a bad precedent for how you go about handling your business. That said, that's the university's aspect. And then there's the parental aspect. And the parental aspect is having those conversations with those kiddos to say, hey, there's some sacrifices that we need to make, and there's some things that we need to do so you are able to attend this university. I remember it may have been sophomore year. I had enough money to pay for school, enough money to pay for books, enough money to pay for the first semester in terms of housing. And I did not have money to pay for the second semester of housing. So I moved out of the dorm the second semester, which in retrospect was one of the best things that ever happened to me, because I moved in a house with 4 guys and they were lifelong friends, and then ultimately moved into an apartment with the gentleman who was my best friend. And that was life-changing because it gave me an opportunity to do some adult stuff, to be an adult, to understand that you had to afford rent, you had to work, you had to do X, Y, and Z, you had to make it work. And so from that aspect, I think that there are lessons to be learned when we talk about wage stagnation and how that has a trickle-down impact on everything. And as a culture, I think it allows us to talk about finances and making certain that we have all those I's dotted and all those T's crossed, so that when we are making those decisions that can impact us for the rest of our lives, that we have all the information. Receipt number 2 in terms of politics is housing affordability. I just talked about getting my first apartment, and the housing affordability is the biggest structural pressure underneath relationship expectations, regardless of whether or not it's a romantic relationship or a friendship. It's having the conversation to make certain that you can afford where you're trying to stay, and that you're able to buy furniture and continue to maintain where it is that you're staying. The housing market is something that we hear a lot of with respect to millennials and Gen Z, and how you have a lot of them that can afford to move out of their parents' house, or can't afford not to have roommates, or can't afford to buy this economy and the shit that's going on with this economy has put a lot of these individuals under a lot of pressure. It's made it harder for a lot of them to climb that ladder, achieve what we consider to be the dream in terms of home ownership. But at the same time, it's allowed them to look at some of the issues that some of us that may be homeowners have faced in terms of being able to maintain a home and the pressures that come with that. And so the question that I have for you, Ms. Lynn, is how does housing costs, or how did housing costs change the way you approached marriage, family, independence, or after your divorce, and the decisions that you made in terms of whether you want to stay in your house or move someplace else?
Yeah, so all of those things. So I moved out of my family house when I was 17 because I'm a hothead. So I lived by myself.
Oh, even then? Jesus.
Yes, I was still in high school, so I moved out at 17, and my mom and dad had gotten a divorce, and just
You moved
whatever.
out or you kicked out?
I moved out. And so I moved out at 17, and I've been taking care of myself for a long time. And then when I turned 26, I wanted to get married. Well, I wanted to have kids. And so with that, I thought it was getting married, and I wanted to have stability for them. I wanted to buy a house. I was here in Austin, and I qualified, and I was like, I'm buying a mansion. Then I started looking around Austin. I was like, I'm living in a shack. But I wanted to buy a house, and I'm not going to just, again, live in squalor. I also am very conservative, and I think that things are going to happen. So I didn't want to buy at the top of what I could afford because I didn't bet on myself. So I just bought a house. It was a nice house. And that was the house that my soon to be husband and I lived in after I got pregnant with the second baby, because I was like, I'm not living in this little house with 3 boys. So we started looking for another house, and we had to look at what we could afford, look at schools, look at a whole host of things. At that time, it was a buyer's market. And so we would go look at a house, and 5 seconds later, they had 15 bids on it. So we ended up building a home and hoping that the area would grow around us. When we got a divorce, I kept the house because it was a few reasons. First, I wanted stability for the boys. They were still in high school, and I wanted them to have stability, especially for the oldest. But I had to pay my husband part of the equity in the home. And so my cost of living increased like 3 times as much. So I had to factor that in. Like, can I still afford this house, these bills, the ongoing maintenance of this home once he leaves? And is it worth it? Because the other option was to move. At that time, it's like, you're going to move, but where? Because Austin is extremely expensive. So yeah, I can move, but I'm either going to get a smaller house, pay more, pay the same. What's the purpose? And so I decided to stay and make some sacrifices. I don't go on the biggest holidays. I don't buy what I call luxury items like I used to. I don't shop at the Pottery Barn like I'm crazy anymore. I don't go to Whole Foods every day. I don't do things like that. I make sacrifices because having stability in this home and building equity in this home is more important to me than having another pair of pants.
I think a couple of things you said make sense here. One was moving out at 17. The assumption is that you moved in with someone. You didn't move on your own. You moved in with someone at
I
17.
moved in with my great grandmother and then she passed away. But yeah, I did move in with her. I moved out of the house and moved in with her. And then I assumed the responsibility. Her house was already paid for, but paying all the bills and all of that.
So you think about the failure to launch now with a lot of kiddos that are staying in their parents' basement or staying someplace where they may not have to foot a large bill. In the neighborhood, there's this couple. I think he's a doctor. She's in the medical profession. I think she's a nurse of some sort. They got married and moved into their parents' basement. I was talking to them a couple weeks ago, and she's expecting her first child. And so them living there provides stability and the ability to save money while he's doing his residency. And you think about that leg up and the ability to have those options. That is something that you sort of wish a lot of people did have with respect to being able to afford a place to live. Again, there are obviously cons with living with your in-laws and cons of living in the basement, but they seem to have a healthy relationship with them. And then I'm reminded of a situation in college where I was in grad school and there was a young lady who was in law school and we worked at the same law firm. And one of the things that was interesting was she was living with her boyfriend at the time, and they had, as happens, they had a relationship that ended, and it was difficult for her to find a place. And this was in Maryland, Silver Spring, Maryland, right outside of DC, for those who are familiar with DC. She found it difficult to find a place that she could afford and set herself up for long-term success with respect to what she was trying to do with her career. And that struck me as something that I'd never experienced it before with respect to how relationships can dramatically impact your livelihood with respect to your career and where it is that you could stay, and how it impacted her commute time, how it impacted her prospects in terms of employment, how it impacted her finances. And I saw this girl grow from maybe 130 pounds to literally like 110 pounds just by stressing. She ended up subletting an apartment in someone's house. But, the housing affordability issue is something that I think we need to pay more attention to, especially as we talk about millennials and Gen Z, and whatever we can do to obviously make home ownership or make housing more affordable for them. I'm all for it.
A couple of things. I could not imagine living in my parents' or my husband's parents' anything, because I can't have sex in any of those. I can't do it. In your mother's house? Absolutely not. I remember being engaged to my husband and we stayed with his mom, and so she was like, here's your room, and I was like, and his room is, I'm not, if you touch me I will mace you. In your mother's home?
Oh, wow.
And then I got pregnant, and so I was so embarrassed that they knew that I got pregnant when we went on our anniversary to San Francisco. And so they were making a joke about it. And I was like, please make this stop. Like, I don't want them to know that I had sex with your son. Like, I just don't want this.
I remember when I was in college, my first girlfriend in college, when she visited, I visited her first. She lived here in Atlanta. And I visited her first, and I slept in the basement of her parents' house. And she would sneak down to the basement, and we'd pull around in the basement.
Absolutely. In your mother's home, to this day, at this big age, if you touch me in your mother's home, I'm going to punch you in your kidney. Like, you
Yeah.
better not. No. In your mom's home?
Oh
Absolutely.
yeah,
No.
I got it. I got it into my parents' house with
Oh God, no, I could not. I did today. I still can't do it. I can't.
yeah,
Anyway, so with the housing thing with my son, it's one of the things that we're talking about now. Is like, I want you to start thinking about where you want to live, and then look at the cost of living there, like housing, whatever. And I said, back that out, because that's the amount of money that you're going to need to make. So when you look for jobs in whatever area, you're going to be able to allow you to live on your own, to do these things. And so you need to be cognizant of this. So I'm a budgeter. So you have to do that. That's one of the things that we're working on now, is like, where do you want to live? Okay, let's back that out. Anyway, so that's my thoughts. And I'm not having sex in your mama's house.
the budgeting aspect is the third receipt for politics, and that's consumption pressure. The political and cultural push to keep buying your way into belonging. And you do see that, unfortunately, with individuals who are buying houses pre-COVID. You saw a lot of individuals buy a lot of house because they wanted space, and they felt that we need all this house and we can afford all this house because interest rates were dirt cheap. And so you had individuals buy all this house and they had no furniture in it, and they could not afford the taxes. They could not afford the utilities. There's a lot of stuff that comes with. On the flip side of that, you now have, especially in major cities like Austin, Atlanta, or some of the other cities where you have a lot of these corporations that buy these houses, and you're getting a flood of homes on the market that individuals lease or rent until they can buy. And so in some cases, you'll have individuals live in an area because that's the area they want to be in. They can afford to rent in that area because it fits their image, it fits their lifestyle, but they're buying that image, they're buying that lifestyle, and they may not be able to afford it long term. And so whether it's relationships, whether it's business, or whether it's looking to be seen on the scene because you want to hang out with Miss Lynn and do her TikTok and OnlyFans stuff. That said, when participation becomes expensive, how do relationships change for the person who cannot afford to keep saying yes?
I want to know who these people are. Like, who are these? It's like when we have these TV shows and they're like, I don't know, something like people that eat paint, and they just keep having episodes. I was like, who are these people eating paint? Like, enough of them that you can have a conversation about. I don't know these people that would put themselves in situations where every day they're stressed out. Like, why would you do that? Especially your home. Like, the home is the one place that I have to go to, and it's my sanctuary. Like, everything else that's going on in this horrible world, that I can go into my house and have peace. Why would I want to go into a house and there's no furniture, there's nothing in there, and I'm just rolling around on the floor? Like, just because the outside is beautiful and then I have no peace inside, why would I do this?
So think about it this way, because I was watching this. Atlanta is obviously a city that's big on image, as well as Miami. And one of the things that I saw was you have some of these high-end cars, and you'll see a person driving a high-end car, and you'll think that that person owns that high-end car. So Lynn goes out and Lynn rents a Range Rover, or Lynn rents a Lamborghini to drive around in. And maybe she has an event that she needs to attend. So she wants people to see her driving that high-end car because she is pretending that she can afford that high-end car. There are individuals who will park that high-end car, take pictures in front of that high-end car, and there are other people who will come and they will set up a sign, right? And these people will come and they will charge people to take pictures in front of the high-end car, pretending that it's theirs so they can post it on the gram or post it on TikTok. And you have that going on. You have people who are house sitting or condo sitting, and they will get all the footage that they need for, again, the Look At Me generation. They will post it on the social media platforms. You think this is Lynn high-end condo overlooking Lake Travis or whatnot, and all of a sudden you're like, that's not your condo?
Thank you. Oh my God, I cannot thank you enough, because I couldn't figure out why I don't like Atlanta. Like, there's just something about Atlanta I don't like. And I don't understand a lot of what people are saying to me half the time. So that's one thing. But I like the food. I like the shopping. And I was like, there's something. I just don't know what it is. And you finally helped me. It's this, I want to project this image. And I'm like, oh, that's what it is.
But it's not just Atlanta, it's New York, it's LA, it's Miami, it's anywhere that there is
I don't
Yeah,
I didn't grow up in LA. I grew up in Orange County. I'm sure it's all over the place, but I couldn't figure out why I didn't like Atlanta. And I think that it's just that.
I thought it was me that you.
I mean, I don't like you any place. I don't like you on a plate. I don't like you in a gate. I don't like you at all, Sam I am. I don't like green eggs and ham. So
Wow.
that's not it. I don't like the pretense. I was on a date and the guy was saying, he goes, you look like Southern California. Your essence is Southern California. I said, you know what? That's the only place when I get off a plane that I feel comfortable. And I feel at peace because I don't feel like I need to pretend. I don't feel like it's pretentious. I feel like I can just go hang out at the beach. I can do whatever and I can just be. And that's the only place that I feel like that. So
Maybe
thank you
he,
for helping me.
maybe he was saying Southern. When you think of Southern California, you think of pretension. I mean, it's literally Hollywood. I mean, it's literally Malibu.
I don't. I said I grew up in Orange County, so that's completely
Well,
different than San
yeah,
Diego.
but Orange County is typically pretentious.
No,
It's,
it's actually not. Not when I grew up. They literally was not.
there's
They were the
literally a
dirtiest
show called The
people,
OC.
but they were the people there were like at our school.
Uh-huh.
They got a pass. The surfers got a pass. Like they could
Uh-huh.
just be late and they could say I was watching the tide come in, and they were dirty. Just looked like they just rolled off the beach. Nobody was trying to be anything. But that was when I grew up, and that was a long time ago. So maybe things have changed, but I always feel at home there because it's.
I think if you say LA to most people,
I don't. Again, LA and San Diego and San Clemente are completely 100% different.
San Diego is completely different from LA. So
And San Clemente is completely different from both of them. Like there's no comparison. It's apples and oranges.
okay, all right. So, but I'm saying when you think of Los Angeles,
Okay, but nobody's thinking of Los Angeles.
you said Southern California.
I said specifically where I grew up, and I said I didn't spend time in LA.
You said Southern California.
I said I didn't spend time in LA.
But when you say Southern California, most
But
people
to people,
associate that
especially that grew up in South Carolina and Atlanta and that don't have culture, yes, I can understand why that's confusing for you.
Audience, when a person says I grew up in Southern California, most people are going to assume that you're talking about LA.
I say I grew up in Southern California, they're like, where? And then I tell them. But because there's such a distinction between LA, Long Beach, San Diego, San Onofre, it's just different. It's a different feel, a different vibe.
Well, I mean,
But
San
I
Diego
can
is 2 hours.
understand. You grew up in a small little town in South Carolina. Your culture, you don't have a lot of culture, and that's why you are where you are because you weren't exposed to things. You're just a simple country boy with a simple country mind, like a little country mouse.
I'm happy to be a simple country boy sometimes. That said,
Yeah.
when you think about Miami, you think about LA, you think about New York, you think about Atlanta, a couple other cities in terms of just sexy. They have that individuals who can be a little pretentious at times, depending upon the circles that one runs in. I think it's individuals who are putting out that image to be associated or to live beyond their means or give the impression that they are doing certain things. That's the thing that we need to obviously protect against. And so we make the pivot to edutainment. The first receipt is sitcom apartments and impossible. You think about the Jeffersons and that deluxe apartment in the sky. Entertainment has always used lifestyle as shorthand. The apartment tells the character is independent. The wardrobe tells you that they are stylish. So Ms. Lynn can watch Sex in the City and she can watch Carrie Bradshaw and all her stylish outfits and say, okay, I'm going to get that outfit that she had, and that's what it is that I want to do. The home tells you that they're stable. Over time, entertainment has made a lot of ordinary folks look financially irresponsible and spend their money irresponsibly. So characters will have vague jobs. I don't think anyone on Friends worked, did they? Did they have a job?
Chandler did, and then Monica, she did catering, and Joey was Dr. Drake, whatever his name was.
So think about Friends. All I knew is they worked. They all stayed at this freaking coffee shop all the time.
They had jobs.
Yeah, what were their jobs? What did they do?
I just said Chandler, we really don't know what he did. It was something. Okay. And then Monica was a caterer. Mm-hmm. Joey was an actor, whatever his name was, the other guy. He was a scientist. I can't remember what Rachel did. She did something. And then
vague jobs.
They
They
had
were
day
like
jobs.
they're
Huh?
like They were like Tommy from Martin.
No, they actually had jobs, but they did. And then somebody in the comments said that they did talk about how they afforded the apartment. It was some rent control or something. Somebody made a mention of that whole thing.
Okay, so they were in a rent controlled apartment.
That's why I think I didn't watch Friends like
Mm.
that, but somebody made mention in the comments that
Okay, so
was
what did they do on Mr. Big? What was it? Sex in the
Sex and
City.
the City.
What were their jobs?
Oh my God, they all had jobs. And I can't remember any of their names. So Carrie, she was a writer. She was a
Hmm.
freelance writer. Charlotte was, what did she do? She just did stuff. And then, why can't I remember anybody's name? The older lady, she was a PR person. And then there was the lawyer, the attorney. So they had jobs too.
All right, so that
I
so
don't know
they.
how Carrie afforded all of those fancy shoes, but as a freelance writer, but she did, and thank goodness for it.
You know what? I was reading this a couple days ago. She was doing a podcast, Sarah Jessica Parker,
Jessica
right?
Parker. Mhm.
And she was like, her agent at the time gave her some advice that was life changing. And the advice was, we're not going to negotiate M&Ms and you need to have bottled water and all that stuff in your contract. What we're going to put in your contract is everything you wear, you keep.
Wow. You know, she
So,
has her own shoe collection.
so yeah, so all the items that she wore on Sex in the City,
Wow.
she got to keep.
Wow. That's
I never watched Sex in the City, so I'm
sure.
assuming.
We'll wait a couple of episodes when you disclose that you actually did. The
I'm,
big twist reveal.
I'm assuming that she had some
Carrie's
wonderful.
clothes were amazing. Her shoes were amazing. And I remember you had talked about not being influenced by like TikTokers and whatever, and I really aren't.
Mhm.
But I will tell you, like this lipstick that I have on,
Mm.
it's Fenty, and I have it and I keep it because Rihanna wore it at a Super Bowl game. I believe it was at a Super Bowl game, and I was like, what's this? And I had to have it. And there are times where celebrities, like Halle Berry had on this low-cut bodysuit, which I have
Mhm.
one. It goes to my navel. But she paired it with this bejeweled skirt, and I have been obsessed with it since last evening. I must find one that looks like that and some little ballet shoes so I could wear it to HEB, apparently.
All right, so just think about this then. Of those shows that you watched, how many of them dealt with money problems? Because I can't remember. And again, I never watched Sex in the City, so I don't know. Friends, did Friends ever deal with money problems?
They probably did. Again, I didn't watch Friends like that.
Okay.
Maybe Seinfeld, maybe? I don't remember that. I just think they were just like, you know what's so funny? I can say this. I can definitely say this, that money wasn't a storyline. So it could have been
And you
in
know
the
what?
back, but it wasn't something that was so prevalent that we could say, oh, remember episode whatever, and they were just dealing with the fact that they were food insecure. Like, they didn't do that. So, I don't know. I think that's interesting. I don't know that. I think that some of the shows that were featured black actors and blacks, they did. But the white shows, I'm trying to think. I don't know. In the comments, help me out here. But I think that they may have touched on it, but it wasn't a big thing. Because I'm sure there's an episode where they all wanted to go somewhere and Phoebe couldn't afford it. And they're like, oh, okay, well, I'll put our money together. So I don't know what Phoebe did other than play the guitar.
Yeah, so the second receipt in terms of edutainment is the money conflict gets edited out. And in a lot of these relationships, you don't hear them talk about money. You don't hear about the financial struggles that are underneath someone moving out or someone starting over or planning a wedding or having kids. But the actual money questions in terms of who can afford to start over, who has family that can support them, who is paying for the child care, who is missing work, things of that sort. Those emotional decisions are happening without showing the emotional consequences, especially in shows that do not center Black folk. And it's very interesting to watch them and watch how they navigate around that. Maybe it's because they don't want to stress individuals out, or they want to create this fantasy world where you don't have to worry about those aspects while you're watching us for 22 minutes or so. But this creates a distorted picture of real life, because these characters are making life-changing decisions, but they're not showing the whole 360-degree person. And so the question that I have for you is this: would relationships feel more honest, especially on television, if that part of that conversation was about the financial struggles or the other struggles that real couples deal with.
It's interesting because I'm just thinking about this. Why are we getting our values and everything from TV? Because TV, books, things like that, like fiction, I want to escape from the real world. I want fantasy. I want things that are ridiculous. I don't want to be taught a lesson. I don't want an after school special. So I think it's interesting that we are talking about entertainment being the vehicle to provide values and help inform how people are navigating through life, because I don't want it to. But I think that what has to happen is that people in the community, like real people in the community or in people's lives, they have to have real conversations and real connection and not look to TV to dictate how they should show up.
Yeah, it is interesting from the standpoint of how we consume, or how a lot of folk consume television and use television in some ways as a proxy for where they are in life and what they should be doing or how they should be acting. And that's especially apparent and present with receipt number 3, and that is with reality television. I know you are a huge reality television person because
And I know you're being facetious.
all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so from that aspect, we view reality television, even though a lot of it is scripted, we view it as in some ways confirming a lifestyle or lifestyle decisions that we may want to take part in. I'll use the example of, there was some years ago, a show, it was based in LA. It was about preachers. I think it was called The Preachers of LA. You remember that? The Real Preachers of LA?
How on the nose? Like, stop. Really? So many things wrong with that you're supposed to be in church. That's a look at me. I'm now promoting my own show as a start.
This was maybe 15 years ago or so. And there were 5 preachers. One of them was Bishop Noel Jones, who is obviously a prominent pastor in Los Angeles area. You had another preacher who has since transitioned. You had Dietrich Haddon, who was a gospel singer, but also in ministry. He'd come from Detroit and had set up residence in Los Angeles. There was this white guy who was a pastor. And there was this other guy who had this like porn mustache. It was the thick porn mustache, you know, the mustache that every guy wants to have. It's like thick, look like one of the guys from the Whispers mustache.
Talk to me about facial hair. Go on.
So if I could grow a mustache like that, I'd probably have a mustache like the Whispers mustache. I remember being in LA maybe about 15 years ago, and I happened to stop at Roscoe's Chicken and Waffles and walked in, and one of the preachers from the Real Preachers of LA was here, and so we exchanged some pleasantries. And it's things like that, whether it's they showcase places in some reality TV shows that you then want to experience because they have went to them and they have experienced, whether it's a foodie show or something of that sort. There are things that they can show you that you do want to take part in or you do want to experience, because in some ways it's manifestation. If this person has given his or her stamp of approval on this, then it must be good. If Miss Lynn is going to Slutty Vegan and talking about how wonderful these burgers are, then it's something that I need to try. And so the question that I have for you is this: do you think reality television has trained us to confuse lifestyle display with healthy consumption?
You're probably going to need to unpack that, but it hasn't taught me anything other than to change the channel, because I don't believe a word they say. I view TV as entertainment, and I know that they're not going to show the boring parts because nobody's going to watch that. I remember when I went to see the Dallas Cowboys, and I think Deion Sanders was flipping in the end zone and doing all kinds of stuff, and they were like, fine. And I was like, I'm spending a lot of money for him to entertain me. Let him flip. Like, I just think all of this is for entertainment, and people take this so seriously. But I will also say, you made a point about like experiencing things. Do you remember diners, drive-ins, and dives with Guy Fieri? Whatever his name was. Okay, for everybody listening, this is my opinion, and it means nothing. This is my opinion. We are not to be sued. So my sister and I, anytime they had anything on there, we would be like, oh, we're going here. Let's make sure we try this. Or we're going to go. They're in Austin. Let's do this. So we would always go to the restaurants. Every single one of them sucked at, like, they were terrible. And we were like, Guy Fieri, we can't stand you. But on the Food Network, because you know I love food, if a restaurant was featured, or on MSNBC, what was it, MS Now, or whatever it is, they'll say best donuts in the 50 states, and sometimes I'll send it to you, like, hey, have you ever been here? Or to my brother in California, hey, have you ever been here? If it's in that area, because I want to try the food. If it's the best stuff and it's been featured, that's one thing that I will do. I will go and get the food, and it better be the best stuff, or you're going to get a strongly written.
So you just contradicted yourself. It does influence your consumption.
I just said that. I said when it comes to food, yes, it does. I had to make an exception there because I do that. If it's the best of something, or if they give me, somebody sends a link and they're like, these are the best cinnamon rolls in Austin, I'm going. I will stand in line for 2 hours to get it.
I mean, you can discover some new interesting places. I will agree with you at some of these. I was watching one last night, and maybe in the Food Network, top 20 something places, yada yada. And they featured this spot in Atlanta called the General Muir. And it is a Jewish deli. I've eaten there maybe 3 times. And they are known for their pastrami sandwiches. I'm not a big pastrami person. But as they're talking about how fabulous this restaurant is, I'm looking at it going, yeah, no, it's not.
It's like here when we got our first restaurant, they were like, we're going to get a fancy restaurant in the neighborhood. And I was like, oh my God, what is it? Chili's. Okay, so I don't listen.
Let me say this, though. There's a Gen Z food influencer that puts his stuff on YouTube. And I've discovered in Atlanta some great restaurants by watching him, because he is all of 22 or 23. One of the things that he did, one of the last episodes that I saw, he decided that he wanted to try the best restaurant at every concourse at Hartsville Jackson Airport. Okay. So, but he did it this way. He asked the people that worked in the airport concourse for a recommendation. And he said, hey, I'm doing this. I'm flying. He was flying someplace. He did 3 of the concourses coming in. He got to the airport maybe 3 hours before he needed to. And that gave him enough time to hit ABC. And he asked people, the people that worked there, he said, can you recommend, what is a restaurant that's here that you really like? And they gave him a recommendation. And he said, okay, and I'm going to buy you lunch, or I'm going to buy you breakfast, I'm going to buy you dinner. And he, that was his way of experiencing every concourse, all 6 concourses, 6 or 7 concourses in Hartsville Jackson. And I really, really enjoyed that episode. So that gave me an opportunity.
Still do, like, if he said that until he proved himself, I would still look at reviews to make sure they're not like on the health inspector's board or something like that. But if I went and like he was a hit every single time, I'd like, that is one thing I will say, that yes, I will go to the best of, and if it's in terms of food, like I just really love food, and so yes, I would do that.
There's another one, and I was watching him yesterday, and he look up to go to the best barbecue places in Atlanta. And
he left Atlanta, so he flew out.
No, this is a guy who lived here. He did one where he's going to go to the best barbecue places. And he did another guy who said, I'm going to go to the best celebrity-owned restaurants in Atlanta. And I'm going to get their special. So it was almost like a Keith Lee type thing. If you know who Keith Lee is,
I do.
Okay, so it's like Keith Lee, where he goes in, gets the food, and then he critiques the food. And, stuff like that I enjoy because I can learn different things. And that's the way that I learned about 2 Chainz vegan pizza restaurant. It was about watching one of those things where I like, okay, well, I gotta go try this vegan pizza that everyone was talking about and raving about. And, it was good. It was good. I enjoyed it. So that's it. It was a great experience. Miss Lynn, what do you have planned for this week? Nothing?
No, I don't have a lot going on.
So you don't have a lot going on this week. Okay. Well, that's good for you that you don't have a lot going on. All right. So guys, thanks again for taking the opportunity to spend some time with us. So what's the point? The point is not that you should stop wanting nice things. The point is not that travel is bad, that weddings should be small, that you should never buy the house. You should never celebrate the birthday or never upgrade the hotel, never enjoy the life you work hard to build. The point is that every lifestyle has a structure underneath it. And when the lifestyle becomes larger than the structure, the people inside the relationship start paying the difference. They pay the debt, they pay the exhaustion, they pay with resentment, they pay with arguments that appear to be about money, but are really about fear. Fear of falling behind, fear of disappointing people, fear of looking unsuccessful, fear that the relationship is not exciting enough, fear that the family is not doing enough, fear that a simpler life means you somehow fail. But a life does not become more successful simply because it becomes more expensive. And a relationship does not become more secure because it's photographed well. Some of the strongest relationships will never look impressive online. They may not take the biggest trips, throw the largest parties, live in the most stylish homes, or celebrate every milestone like a product launch. But they know what they can carry, they know what they can sustain, they know when to say yes and when to say no. And they are not willing to sacrifice that private stability for public proof. That is the real work. Not building the most visible life, building a sustainable one. So here's your challenge for the next 30 days. Pay attention to every expectation that costs you something, not only money, time, but time, energy, attention, peace, and emotional capacity. Every time you feel pressure to expend, attend, travel, host, upgrade, celebrate, or perform, pause and ask yourself 3 questions. Do I actually want this? Can my current structure sustain this? What will be the cost after this moment is over? And at least once a week, have one honest conversation with the people closest to you. Talk about your relationship and how much you can realistically carry, what you can afford financially, what you can afford emotionally, what you have the time and energy to maintain, and what expectations may need to be adjusted, not because you're giving up on a beautiful life, but because you are protecting the life underneath it. At the end of those 30 days, choose one expectation to release, one trip you did not have to take, one purchase you did not have to make, one invitation you can decline, one tradition you can simplify, and one image you no longer need to perform. And redirect that money, time, energy toward actual relationships. Then rest, pay something down, have the conversation, spend an ordinary day together, build a structure. Because the strongest relationships are not always the ones that can afford the most. They're the ones honest enough to know what they can sustain. And that's the point. While you're out and about this week, make the time to do something nice for yourself. And while you're at it, take the time to do something nice for someone else. Until next time, we'll talk to you.
And that's a wrap. Thank you for listening and spending your time with us on I Take Your Point. For more unfiltered conversations like this, click the link in the description. Huge thank you to our production team. We couldn't do this without you. Quick disclaimer, the views shared are those of the host and guest and are for informational purposes only, not professional advice. Keep building your own table, take care, and be well.